Have you ever known exactly what God wanted you to do, but every part of you wanted to run the other way? Not because you didn't believe in God, not because you doubted His power, but because you knew what obedience might cost you. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't hearing God's voice, it's accepting what He's asking. And the truth is, many of us are running from something right now. Maybe it's a conversation you know you need to have. Maybe it's forgiveness you know you should give. Maybe it's a purpose you feel called to but feel unprepared for. If you've ever wrestled with something like that, you're not alone. In fact, thousands of years ago, someone in the Bible faced the same struggle. His name was Jonah, and his story begins with a calling he didn't want. But before we continue, take a moment and think about this question. What is something in your life that you might be running from right now? You don't have to explain it, but if you relate to that feeling, you are in the right place. Welcome to Stories from the Sanctuary. Subscribe so we can navigate that situation together. And while you're at it, feel free to let me know which country you're watching from. It is always great to know that these messages are reaching more and more people worldwide. One day, God gave Jonah a mission. It was clear, direct. There was no confusion. God told him to go to Nineveh and warn the people there about their wickedness. Nineveh was a powerful city, but it had a reputation for cruelty, violence, oppression. These were not people Jonah admired. They were people he feared and possibly even hated. Jonah knew something about God that made this mission even harder. God was merciful. Jonah suspected that if the people of Nineveh repented, God might actually forgive them. And Jonah didn't want that. Pause for a moment and think about that. Have you ever struggled with the idea of mercy for someone who hurt you? Have you ever felt like someone didn't deserve forgiveness? Be honest with yourself for a moment. If you've ever wrestled with that feeling, you can write this in the comments. Forgiveness is hard, because sometimes it really is. Instead of going to Nineveh, Jonah ran. Not slowly, not reluctantly. He ran in the opposite direction. He traveled to a port city and boarded a ship headed for Tarshish, a place as far away from Nineveh as he could possibly go. Think about that for a moment. Jonah wasn't just avoiding a difficult task, he was trying to escape the calling of God. And if we're honest, many of us have done the same thing. Sometimes we run from responsibility, sometimes we run from forgiveness, sometimes we run from purpose. Because purpose often asks us to step into uncomfortable places. But running doesn't bring peace. It only postpones the moment we have to face what God is asking of us. Take a moment and reflect on that. Have you ever tried to avoid something only for it to keep coming back into your life? Sometimes what we run from is exactly what we were meant to face. As Jonah's ship sailed across the sea, the sky began to change. Dark clouds gathered. The wind grew stronger. Soon, the sea was raging. Waves slammed against the ship with terrifying force. The sailors on board were experienced men. They had seen storms before, but this storm was different. It was violent, unpredictable. The ship groaned as if it might break apart. Panic spread across the deck. The sailors threw cargo overboard, hoping to lighten the ship. They cried out to their gods for help. But where was Jonah? Down below deck, sleeping. Isn't that strange? While everyone else was fighting for their lives, Jonah was asleep. Sometimes when we run from God, we convince ourselves everything is fine. We distract ourselves. We numb the discomfort. We pretend the storm isn't connected to us. But eventually, the truth surfaces. The sailors cast lots to determine who was responsible for the storm, and the lot fell on Jonah. When they confronted him, Jonah finally admitted the truth. He told them he was running from the Lord. Pause for a moment. Have you ever reached a moment where you realized you couldn't keep pretending anymore? A moment where you had to admit something to yourself or to God? Those moments are uncomfortable, but they are often the beginning of transformation. Jonah knew what had to happen. He told the sailors to throw him into the sea. They hesitated. They tried rowing harder, but the storm only grew stronger. Finally, they had no choice. They lifted Jonah and cast him into the ocean. The moment he hit the water, The storm stopped, just like that. The sea became calm, but Jonah sank beneath the waves, deeper and deeper into the darkness. And in that moment, it seemed like his story might end there. But God had another plan. God prepared a great fish to swallow Jonah, a creature often described as the great fish. And Jonah remained there for 3 days and 3 nights. Imagine what that must have felt like. Complete darkness, silence, no distractions, no escape, just Jonah and his thoughts. Sometimes life places us in moments like that, moments where everything becomes quiet, where we are forced to confront our choices. And sometimes those moments feel like punishment, but they may actually be something else, an opportunity to stop running. Take a moment to reflect on that. Have you ever experienced a season in life where everything slowed down and it forced you to rethink things? Those moments can feel heavy, but they can also become the place where change begins. Inside the darkness, Jonah finally prayed. The man who had run from God now cried out to him. He admitted his mistakes, he acknowledged God's power, and he surrendered. This is one of the most powerful truths in Jonah's story. Even after Jonah ran, God still listened when he prayed. Let that sink in for a moment. No matter how far we run, God still hears us when we call. You don't have to be perfect to pray. You just have to be honest. After 3 days, the great fish released Jonah onto dry land. And once again, God spoke to him. This time, Jonah obeyed. He traveled to Nineveh. The city was enormous. It took days to walk through it. Jonah delivered a simple message. The city would be judged if they did not change their ways. Something unexpected happened. The people listened. From the king to the common citizen, the entire city humbled themselves. They repented, and God showed them mercy. But Jonah was not happy. Instead of celebrating what had happened, Jonah became angry. He told God this was exactly what he feared. He knew God was compassionate. He knew God might forgive the people, and Jonah didn't think they deserved it. Pause for a moment. This part of the story is incredibly honest. Sometimes we want grace for ourselves, but justice for everyone else. Have you ever struggled with that tension? If that thought resonates with you, you can write this phrase in the comments. Mercy changes everything, because it truly does. To teach Jonah a lesson, God caused a plant to grow and give him shade. Jonah appreciated the comfort, but the next day the plant withered, and Jonah became upset again. God asked Jonah a simple question. If Jonah cared so much about a plant he didn't create, shouldn't God care about thousands of people? People who didn't yet understand right from wrong? The story ends with that question, and it leaves us with something to think about. Jonah ran from God. He faced a storm. He sat in darkness. He witnessed mercy he didn't understand. But maybe the story isn't just about Jonah. Maybe it's about us, too. Maybe it's about the times we run, the storms we face, the moments we surrender, and the mercy we struggle to give. So before this video ends, take a moment to reflect on this question. Where might God be calling you that you've been afraid to go? It could be forgiveness. It could be purpose. It could be a step of faith. If you feel comfortable sharing, I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. And if this story encouraged you today, consider sharing it with someone who might need the reminder that even when we run, God is still willing to meet us where we are. Because the story of Jonah isn't just about running from God, it's about the incredible truth that no matter how far we run, God's mercy can still reach us. I made this video after it was suggested by one of you. What an incredible suggestion. The story of Jonah is powerful. If you have any more suggestions, let me know what kinds of videos you would like to see more of. Before you go, I want to leave you with one last thought. Jonah ran because he was afraid. Afraid of the assignment. Afraid of the outcome. Afraid of what obedience might cost him. But when everything around him fell apart, when the storm came, when he found himself in the deepest, darkest place, he finally did something powerful. He surrendered. And maybe that's where you are right now. Not on a ship, not in a storm, but facing something that feels just as overwhelming. A decision, a calling, a step of faith. And if that's you, I want to remind you of something simple. You don't need to have all the answers. Sometimes, all you need to do is breathe. Inhale courage. Exhale fear. That message meant so much to me that I turned it into something you can carry with you every day. I recently launched my online store, Sanctuary Stories, where I created a hoodie and a few other pieces designed to remind you of that truth in your everyday life. A reminder that even when you feel afraid, you can still choose courage. So, if this message spoke to you today and you want something tangible to remind you of it, you can check it out through the link in the description. And as you wear that piece, I hope you carry this message with you. You don't have to run anymore. God's purpose for your life is still waiting for you on the other side of obedience. And before you leave, if this message encouraged you, comment this: I choose courage. I'd love to read it. Don't forget to check out the link in the description.